All right, guys, on this episode of the podcast, we have Dominic Kacich from St. Louis, Missouri here today. I had a great conversation with him, mainly about tournament play. He's a very analytical individual. He doesn't get to travel much for tournaments, but when he does, he usually puts up a pretty good showing. He's part of the Power 100, which, if you don't know what that is yet, he basically can kick a lot of butt when he plays pinball, and you'll find out a lot more about that as we go on the podcast, as we touch base on not only the Power 100, we talk a little bit about Pinburg, we talk about his showing at Indisc in 2019, and we go into a little bit of discussion about mindset and the approach to different games. So I feel like this episode will have a lot of value for you, and I highly encourage you to give it a listen. Other than that, you guys enjoy. All right, Dom, what's going up? Or going on? Going up, going on.
Not too bad. Happy to be here and supporting the podcast.
Well, I appreciate it, especially a lot of your patience just trying to get everything set up. It's been quite the past 30 minutes trying to figure this all out.
It's all good.
All right, so I told you I wasn't going to have you introduce yourself, which is true. So everybody knows that this is Dominic, and we talked about it a little bit earlier. But mainly, do you want to tell everybody how you got into pinball?
Yeah, for sure. So, I'm 27 years old currently, and I first started playing pinball probably around 2005, even believe it or not. I played a lot of competitive sports growing up, and in between a few of my basketball games, I remember playing on a few games at the local arcade and just really enjoying it, and really actually liking the actual physical aspect of pinball. And then we bought our first game when my parents redid their basement in 2006. We brought a Sopranos pinball machine, as that show was my dad's favorite show, and kind of once again hits on the thing everyone talks about is theme is most important for pinball buying in the pinball buying marketplace. So I just played a lot of Sopranos growing up. I remember listening to when my dad was playing it and I should have been in bed. I was listening just on the basement steps, watching as he advanced all the ranks and whatnot in that game. And then the next year I remember driving in St. Louis, and I saw a sign for the pinball company. And so I went in there and I met the owner, Nick Parks, and he kind of showed me all the games that he had, and he introduced me to Chad Keller, who was a local pinball collector at the time, and I was able to go over to his house and see all these games. I would say probably 30 to 40 games of all the classics in great shape: Medieval Madness, Monster Bash, Whitewater, Big Bang Bar, the list goes on and on. So I was kind of, in shock, actually getting that opportunity and whatnot. And, I kind of always envisioned myself, hopefully having that when I grow older.
So that's pretty much what got you into it immediately. You were just hooked as soon as you
Yes.
saw all that stuff, weren't you?
Yep. I like the physical aspect of pinball. I liked being able to control the game and all that stuff. I didn't really have much interest in any other video games per se. It was mostly a lot of pinball and just a lot of sports, basketball, track, baseball, soccer, and a few others, golf.
So, yeah, especially golf. So
Yes.
basically anything you've done is just hand-eye coordination related, pretty much. Except
Yeah,
for
correct.
running. I mean, come on, running. Running's not
Yeah.
hand-eye coordination, is it? Maybe it is. I don't know.
Running's all about turnover, so my legs have quick turnover. But no, you're right. Hand-eye coordination is something that I was it was a blessing from God, obviously, and that's helped me a lot in my sports and moving on to pinball now for sure.
That's interesting. So then did you know at the very beginning that you were just going to end up being into competitive pinball? Was that something that you knew about immediately? Because it took me about a year and a half before I even knew competitive pinball even existed. It took me a while.
That's it. That's a great question. So I played a lot of pinball from 2005 to 2000 and say 6 or 7, and then once high school I was a freshman in high school in 2007. Graduated in 2011. I didn't really play much pinball other than just at home playing Sopranos. And then moved off to college. And I remember probably my freshman, sophomore year, I would always go and check on, on the Dern website. And just, I would always check probably once every 3 or 4 quarters. Hey, what's the new game coming out? I remember seeing Metallica when that came out, X-Men. I think, those were the 2 games that came to mind. So I would always get excited, but then, in Kirksville, Missouri, where I went to college, the only game was Addams Family. So, I played that a lot in the local arcade. And then I would go to Columbia, Missouri, which is home of the University of Missouri. It was roughly an hour and a half from my college. And I met Adam McKinney there one night when I was playing Addams Family. And he was the one who kind of introduced me to, hey, you're pretty good. Have you ever heard of playing in tournaments? And I kind of looked at him, was like, what are you talking about, man? But no, he gave me his number, I believe, or Facebook or something like that. And, I'm a very competitive person. So I reached out to him, and kind of the rest is history. I've learned a lot from Adam, since I started really in 2014 playing competitively. And, we've had a lot of good experiences together, and he's helped me learn a lot about pinball.
It's funny you mentioned Adam. I had the pleasure of meeting him this past Indisc, and he is quite the character. Like I saw the greatest grouping ever in the history of pinball. It was during the Classics finals. I can't remember if it was 1 or 2, but our one of my buddies, Sam Swain, he made it. It was his first ever A finals, and he was in a group with Luke Nahorniak, Adam McKinney, and Eric Stone.
Oh gosh.
so legit having the intensity of Eric Stone, yes. And just, Adam, he is just a free spirit. I mean, the dude is cracking me up the whole time. So that was an interesting group to see. But also too, you guys ended up playing in a finals together in Indisc just the year before, correct?
Yeah, Indisc in 2019, and it was honestly a dream come true. And it kind of was, everything coming together for me from a pinball standpoint, just the amount of hard work that I put in, the amount of time that, I spent with Adam, traveling down to Columbia, traveling to Springfield, Missouri, other tournaments in 2014, 2015, 2016 timeframe, really honing in my skills and just learning how to become a better player. So yeah, like you said, having the opportunity to play against Adam in, one of the highest level of tournaments, out there was definitely a dream come true.
Yeah, I would definitely put Indisc probably just right up there, right below Pinburg in terms of prestige. And even then, I would agree. It was such a difficult tournament. I don't know how it was the year before, but it was by far the most difficult tournament I've ever played in.
It was very difficult. I was playing some of the best pinball I'd ever played, and I was really struggling to put 5 games together. I would have, 3 or 4 solid ones, and then just one that was just kind of a card ender. So, I just kept battling, and I finally found Excalibur, a game that I never thought that, I had no idea, how to play the game going into it. But I finally gave it a try on Adam's suggestion, of course, because he kind of knows how I play. And once I figured out that game, I was finally able to put together a card, and I think I qualified at like 11th or so in that tournament.
Really? Yeah. And for those people that don't know, Indisc, it's located out in California. I forget the exact Banning, I think it is.
Banning, California.
California.
Great tournament.
Yeah, ran by Carl D'Angelo, Jim Belcito, and Bob Matthews, correct?
That's correct.
And it's basically a Papa format card. So best 5 games, you have to put together 5 games in a row that beats out everybody else, and your scores. I mean, it's a difficult tournament. It's such a grinder. It was by far for me. I don't know about you, Dom, but I was literally exhausted just playing in that.
Yeah, I get exhausted at a lot of these tournaments just because I love it, and I just keep going. But Indisc was yeah, it was just so exhausting just because, if you have a bad, if you're having a good card and then you mess up, then you have to restart basically. Whereas another herb, other herb formats, you can have a bad game and it doesn't hurt you. Indus really challenges you to make sure you're playing, all the games well in a row. And it's not necessarily getting the highest score. It's just, can I have a solid game of 5 above average scores on a game to have a good card.
Yeah, and it's funny you mentioned that too, because I had one card, and this is after my qualifying card, as a matter of fact. I ended up, or the card that helped me qualify, I ended up just absolutely blowing up Meteor. I mean, I was so fired up. It was like 1.5 million on ball 1. Just killed it, right? Of course, ball 2, ball 3, I do jack shit, and I end up below 1.6 million. But I was still fired up about that. And then I immediately just shit the bed the very next game. I mean, I forget even what I played. So I gave it one more game and did the exact same thing. Just totally ruined my card. Number 1 score gone. And that just kind of showed just how volatile that type of tournament is.
Oh,
it's so tough.
For sure. I remember, I think it was Kaylee George. I was watching him, and he had his first 3 games on his card was a first, and a third. And I was waiting to see him, ranked in the standings at first, or whatnot. But it turns out, I don't know if he lost focus or what, but he ended up, that card didn't end up counting for him. The last 2 games were just, he must have just houseballed or something. But that card didn't count, which was just amazing.
Really? Totally just ditched the card.
He did, yes. After a first and a third.
Yeah, it's one of those weird things you learn pretty quick, unless you're Elwin or maybe Raymond Davidson, but you learn pretty quick how just to say void. Like I learned that was in my vocabulary so much.
Yeah. You definitely want to void, but at the same time, I always, if you are having a bad card, the last 2 or 3 games, if you're having a bad card, it can't hurt just to go play other games and see, hey, is this game an opportunity for me on my next card?
Yeah. And that's very true. And I was curious to know kind of what your strategy was at the very beginning of that. And I definitely want to hit back onto how you started out in tournament pinball and all this, but I want to lean into this a little bit more, because I found when I play any tournament, if it's Herb or especially even 5 card or Papa card, I tend to use my very first entry or my first card just on games that I know I want to play, but yet I'm using it for practice. Like I'm finding out the geometry, where the tilt is, where the shots are. That's what I tend to do. How do you approach it?
I'm the same way. I play a lot of the modern games. Obviously I have more access to those, and I'm able to go to a lot of my local collectors' houses, and they let me just hammer and bash on these games. So which it's nice. So when I go to a tournament, I'm trying to find all the newer games. If I remember correctly, for that tournament, it was Pirates of the Caribbean. The
Jersey Jack, right?
Yep. The new one from Jersey Jack. I want to say Cue Ball Wizard was one that I liked playing and I was comfortable on. Iron Maiden was one. And after that, it was kind of just like, a hodgepodge of games that I wasn't too familiar with, honestly, which, can be challenging, but at the same time, it opens up a lot of options for me in terms of figuring out which games, are best suited for my capabilities and how I play the game.
It's interesting that you mentioned that, because I imagine besides the locals from that scene, I imagine everybody else that's coming in, they probably feel a lot of the same way. They're playing, because Indisc is notorious for having games that typically you don't find at tournaments. I mean, Rescue 911 was one of them this year, and I remember us talking about it before the tournament even started. As soon as I saw it was announced, I told you immediately, I'm like, this is going to be the longest playing game. Once everybody figures out what to do, we're going to be there forever. And it turns out, like, I sat there and I watched Elwin play for at least half hour, and then Zach Sharp, half hour, Kaylee George, half hour. And I get up there, I'm like, I'm going to do the same thing. 3 minutes later, I'm like, I'm not going to do the same thing. But it's amazing what some of those players can do.
No, it is. And they're really good at handling pressure, and they're really good at understanding, what they're good at and their strengths. if you watch Keith play, if you watch Kaylee, Bowen, they're Eric Stone, they're all very calm when they're playing, and they're all their flipper skills and just how patient they are and with their nudging and stuff. It's high level and it's fun to watch, and that's why they are the best in the world. And I definitely watch a lot of Keith Elwin videos and Kaylee and Bowen as well, just to basically see, hey, how are they playing the game? And basically when I'm watching their videos, I'm in my head basically playing the game with them. Would I dead bounce in this situation? Would I do a live catch? Would I do a live post catch? Would I do a tip pass? All that stuff. And I think just kind of walking through that process and trying to put myself in their shoes has helped me tremendously in terms of how fast I've been able to reach the highest level of competitive pinball.
Yeah, I was about to say, you don't really get to travel too much nationally. You stay more regional, correct?
Yeah, I mean, recently I've been so busy with work and stuff, it can be challenging. 2019 and 18, I did get out and travel a little bit. I don't really get much opportunity to play in the local scene, unfortunately. There are some good locations here. I just I do other things. I have a fiance. I like to spend time with her. I like to play golf. So there always seems to be other things coming up on weekend tournaments locally.
See, now I got to hope my wife doesn't hear this. If she hears somebody else saying I'm spending time with my fiance instead of pinball, I'm up Schitt's Creek, Dom. You can't let her know about that. But
yeah.
I'm glad you mentioned that though earlier. It's so for those that don't know, you're a Power 100 player, which means that you have a winning record against anybody that's ranked inside the 250 in the world, correct?
Yep, that's correct. And I like I said, I'd love to get my ranking up and be a little higher. It's just, the access to how many tournaments can I go to in a year is just, makes it challenging and stuff.
Right.
But I don't think I've ever had I think I've qualified in every major tournament I've played in. Assuming qualifying in A division for Pinburg is counts. You know what I mean?
Hey, it counts for me. My ass was down in C division. I just shit the bed day one. So that totally counts. Yeah. Now we're bringing back bad memories, Dom. Can't do it.
Well, but that's why you're not in the Power 100, unfortunately, and you won't be for the next two years. All the listeners of this show. Do not play or if you're going to play in a tournament, make sure that you're putting your full effort into that tournament. And if you're going to play a classics tournament on the side, at least from a rating standpoint, I recommend putting your full effort into it. So, if you don't just play the minimum number of games and finish 100th, that can really impact your top Power 100 rankings, if that's something you care about.
That's very true. And it's funny you mentioned that. For those that don't know what we're referencing, there's two tournaments that happens at Pinburg. Well, that happens at Replay FX. One of them's Pinburg. The other one is, I think it's called Intergalactic.
Yep, the Intergalactic.
Right?
Yep.
Which is, I honestly forgot how it runs. I think it's a herb. You get 20 entries or something like that.
It's a limited herb format.
10?
Yep. I think it's 10.
Okay, 10. See, I didn't even use all of them. So what happened, guys, is I bought all my entries and I was like, yeah, I'm going to play everything. And day one, I didn't even play bad. I just shot like I was Ray Charles. Like I legit played like I was a blind person playing pinball. I'd get a ball in a flipper. I would just miss a shot. I was under control. There was no nerves. I just couldn't hit anything. I picked the worst time to play. So essentially I had my Intergalactic tickets also. And I played, I think 2 games total, 3 games. And finally I was just like, F it. Can't do it. I'm going to go grab a beer. And then 1 beer turned into 2 turned into 3. And I was like, you know what? I'm not going back. And I didn't think anything of it. And I took 4th to last. It just torpedoed.
Yep,
totally torpedoed it.
Yeah, if you want to be in the Power 100 and you're going to Pinburg, you have to do pretty well there. If you can qualify for A, you should, that should help your Power 100 for sure.
Yeah, and that's something I would like to do, but just like you said, I've got to wait a long time. So I guess, and I thought I was going the right direction until all these tournaments got just canceled. And I remember telling you, after free play, because I didn't play classics at all there, because we talked about this. I'm like, I'm not playing classics. I'm just going to focus on main. And then I told you, and I told a couple others, if you see me trying to play classics at Indisc, tell me no, stop me. I need an intervention. And everybody tried to stop me on game one. And next thing I know, game one turns into about 12 games. And finally, I'm just like, screw it. I'm not qualifying. I'm done. And then again, I did the same thing again where I fall way down. Everybody else is up. I do decent in the main, but yeah, it just, you're right. Doing that type of strategy, if you're wanting to be power 100, it's not going to work.
There's definitely a lot of strategy involved, and there's tournaments where I do play classics, but that's an area where I'm still trying to get a lot better at, and I've had success playing in some classics. I think Cleveland or Buffalo maybe.
That's actually where we met too, during classics.
Yeah, Cleveland. Yep.
Well, we played in both main together and classics, didn't we? I think we did. We were both grouped up. Okay. Yep. And we split it 1-1, but I guarantee you, but classics, I got annihilated. Dom killed me. That's just the truth. It was so bad because I did the same thing. You witnessed me probably doing the same thing. I got stuck on, I think it was Jungle Queen. During qualifying, and all I had to do was get over, I think it was 80,000 or 90,000. I say that's all. It's close to rolling it. Mm-hmm. And I ended up spending, I thought it was just going to take me 2 games. Next thing I know, it's 3 hours later, and I'm the only one queued up on this damn game.
I do. Yeah, I remember thinking to myself, I think you were wearing a Yankees hat, and I hadn't really met you at the time until we actually met in our playoffs a couple hours later. I was thinking to myself, this guy is just relentless on this Jungle Queen game.
I can't help it. I get a one-track mind. Especially at a Herb event, if I know I can beat the game, I'm going to try to beat the game. It's just the same way at Free Play Florida. I did the same thing on Grand Prix. I ended up stuck on there. And it's funny because I was already qualified for A, but I knew that I could get into the top 5 scores. And I knew if I did that, I would have the buys for the next day. So I really wanted that. Yeah. And it was one of those things. I had full bonus on my second game, and somehow I got a tilt out of the pop bumpers. Like it was in the pops and the damn thing tilted. Full bonus, everything. And I was just raging so hard. I ended up playing it like 18 more times. I swear I paid enough money, Dom, in tickets. I could have just took the damn game home with me. It was so terrible.
Oh man.
But that's the way it goes though. I mean, it's just.
It is. And there's some tournaments where, things that you get off to a hot start and you're fine. And I can go over and play some classics games, and other tournaments where that's not the case. I'm stuck over at Maine trying to qualify to get my points for the actual circuit. So.
Yeah, and that's one of those things where I wish I had Elwin's talents, where he just walks in and immediately just goes beast mode on every game in there and just leaves. He's good. He's done.
Yeah, that's the best way to do it, and we're all striving to get there, but it takes a lot of practice. I'm sure if you asked him, he played a lot growing up, and his practice and his fine-tuned his profession.
For sure. So then let's kind of circle back here. What was one of the first big tournaments that you played at?
The Louisville Arcade Expo in 2016, I think, was my first Stern Pro Circuit event.
And was that Stern Pro Circuit then, or was that the Papa?
That's a good question. I think that was still the last year of the Papa format.
Okay.
I think that was the case there. But no, I really enjoyed that event. I thought it was well run by all the people at Papa. They brought their games down there, and I think they had the broadcasting and stuff. So it was always a great tournament to go to. It was only 4 hours away from St. Louis, and it worked out great in the schedule in early March. So hopefully that one can come back at some point, because I thought it was really a great way to be a Kickstarter for the Stern Pro Circuit each year.
Yeah, and that's what I was trying to figure out actually just a couple of weeks ago. I couldn't find out if they had just stopped doing the convention altogether or just stopped doing the tournament.
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure what happened. I heard that the show still goes on. I think that something happened with the tournament. I'm not sure if it was the organizers of the tournament or Papa, but it's as of, I think last year was the first year that it was not on the circuit. Really?
It's just crazy how that happens. And that's all Herb formats, right?
Correct. Yep.
Out that way.
Yep.
Then So you said I remember us talking about this off camera, but you have
I've
taken
played in 3 Louisville Arcade Expos, 2016, 17, and 18, and I finished 12th all 3 years. So I was qualifying an A, and I was winning a group or two, and I was never able to get to the actual semis. I think the only time I've gotten to the semis was before, I think it was Pinball was the first time. I think it took 7th in 2018 maybe. And then obviously in disc, it was my breakthrough in getting all the way to the finals of that tournament.
Yeah. So took 12th 3 times in a row. Did you just plan that out?
Honestly, I didn't even really look at it until I was looking at my at my IFPA scorecard, and it just kind of how it worked out, man. Finishing between the I guess 9th through 12th place, or I would imagine. So.
That's crazy. That's, if anything, you're consistent.
Yes, very.
So
consistent.
That's a good thing. Well, also too, we were talking about Power 100 earlier, and one of the reasons why that's important for those that are listening is that I think it's Josh Sharp, right? He hosts.
Yeah, he hosted at his house, right? and honestly, I mean, I just it was the same weekend as Expo, so I went up there early just to I just wanted to play and see kind of how I was against the other top guys against the top players. And honestly, I mean, maybe outside of Pinburg, but I mean, even this tournament though, like everyone in that tournament was just super high skill level. There wasn't anyone there who should not have been there. So I learned a ton from all those guys and just watching them play. And I made a pretty good run. I think I was in the lead most of the time actually, and I ended up taking 4th, or I think 4th or 5th.
And that was out of about 19, 20, 21 players or something.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, something like that. So I was ecstatic. I think Escher ended up winning with his amazing game of like Walking Dead. He just blew it up. And then I think Alex and Josh Sharp also finished ahead of me.
Yeah, it's just, and that's one of the tournaments that I really wish that it would be showcased a lot more. Because like you said, there's such high level play happening right there, especially since you have all Power 100 players there. Everybody can flat out just play.
Yeah,
that's something I wish they would show it a lot. Yeah, and I think, wasn't it Dead Flip? I think was showing it, or somebody was supposed to show it. And
somebody was supposed to show it, and it ended up not happening. And I think the tournament lasted a little longer than I think it was supposed to. It ended up pushing some events back or some matchups back in the Expo tournament.
Yeah, I remember something about that. But I will say, if this ever happens again, I assume it will, we'll have a Power 100 again. I'll be more than happy to show up and broadcast it, because the way that I've been playing, that's the only way I'm going to actually get into it, short of just setting a lawn chair in Josh's yard. So yeah, I'll offer up the ability to go ahead and stream it. But yeah, it's
I'm sure he'd be willing.
He probably has an amazing collection.
It was I don't know how many games. It was probably 25, 30 games, all in great condition, all eras of games. It was, no complaints for me. It was an amazing day, and I learned a lot from all those guys there playing.
So what would you say is the big difference between playing those caliber of players to playing somebody that might be listening that knows that they're average to slightly above average? What would you say?
So I mean, everyone first of all has great rules knowledge. They understand what to shoot. They understand what shots can lead to potential drains and whatnot. A lot of players really slow it down in high level competition, especially in the heat of the moment. I think the people who slow it down the most and really concentrate on controlling the ball and hitting their shot, and then once again actually getting the ball back in control. You see a lot of that. The accuracy of shooters in the Power 100 and just all the top players is much higher than the average person. That they're probably hitting a ramp shot 90% of the time when they're shooting at it, versus maybe a casual who's more like 40 to 50% of the time. So when you add those things up and just if you bring everything together, that's why those guys are the best in the world.
Yeah, and that's something that we've talked about a lot too. And I've always theorized also that if you mix in the ability to nudge or just keep a ball in play with control, with accuracy, I mean, it's deadly. It's hard to beat.
Yep. Nudging is super important. It's probably, I would say, one of the last things that kind of comes, it comes naturally to people, and it is still something that I am working on. And I will admit that I don't nudge enough. I don't take enough dangers on the machines I'm playing. Because if you watch some of these guys, they're willing to actually take, a double danger early in the ball if that means I still have the ball. Because then, if a ball is a life basically. So, if they still have 3 balls, and if they start shooting accurate and starting to rack up the score on double danger, obviously that's the way to go versus just letting the ball drain. Which I sometimes I can do that sometimes, unfortunately.
Well, it's funny that you mentioned that too, because the name that comes to mind immediately with that is Luke Nahorniak. He is notorious for having a hybrid style to where sometimes he'll be in control, sometimes he'll be playing on the fly, yet somehow he's still in control, and then he'll just shake the shit out of the machine and somehow not tilt.
Yeah, no, if you watch Luke closely at Herb formats, when he's stepping up to a game, if he's he might have had a couple bad balls at first, he's always nudging that machine and trying to get a sense of where that tilt is.
Yep.
And he's not doing that to, he's not doing that because he's mad. He's doing that to learn where the tilt is for when he does play the next game. He understands, what can I get away with? What can't I get away with? So, once he understands that and gets a feel, he can get more comfortable. The more comfortable somebody gets, obviously the higher the score they're most likely going to achieve.
Definitely. Well, were you there with me at Free Play whenever he came over and discovered what was going on with Joker Poker?
Oh yeah, I was there.
Yeah, that was hilarious. For those that don't know, I don't think we've ever told the story. And I'll just tell it briefly because I'll let Luke really explain what was going on. But I just remember we were over by Classics and he came over to us and he was excited. This was like a kid that just woke up on Christmas morning and saw that he just didn't get one bike. He got like 2 or 3 of them. And he was like, there's no tilt on Joker Poker. I'm going to have my way with it. I'm going to get the top score. And not even 30 minutes later, I'm watching him and he was shaking the pin so much that the back box just came flying. And he didn't get a danger, no tilt, but hey,
it's the same thing
game
for everyone. It's just you're trying to get an edge on the field at some point in that tournament, in those type of tournaments.
He found it.
Yeah,
it was probably one of the funniest things I've seen. But by far, just seeing an elite player nudging the machine so much that the back box or whatever starts to come off, he stops, traps up, and kind of holds it to push it back.
That's crazy. Yeah, usually in most cases, obviously the tilts are going to be a lot tighter in these higher level tournaments in order to have lower ball times for all these top level players.
Yeah, it's well, even down at Free Play, I felt like that the tilts were very generous. Like it didn't really feel like anything was super tight. I remember when I
think Guardians was the only one that I felt was very tight.
Yeah, Guardians played weird too because they had the flippers that were kind of, I guess,
very
inverted, shallow.
Yep.
Yes, because so all the shots were just really funky.
It was a weird game for sure.
That was probably, I think, in qualifying, I got right around 950 million, and that was probably the best Guardians game I've ever played in my life. And I own one, and it took everything in me just to get to that. I think you ended up then saying hold my beer, and you got like 1.6.
Yeah, I had a really good cherry bomb multi-ball, and I think Greg Pavarelli was watching it. I got really lucky on the kick out from Quill's Quest, and he like 4 more shots to Quill's to light, to finish the mode, and then ultimately light cherry bomb. And I literally did not flip the flipper. It just kept kicking out and somehow would go off the left flipper, right flipper, and then somehow would go back in the hole.
Really?
And it happened 4 straight times, and I was like, holy cow. And then it started cherry bomb. I had all my multipliers lit, and it was just point bombing from there.
So then you probably even completed Quills, like the second one.
I completed Quills, and I think I started cherry bomb on the same. It was very lucky.
God. Well, it happens like that. That's fine. I mean, sometimes you got to have a little luck.
Oh, there's always a little luck in pinball for sure.
Well, the big thing about it is that, and that's a prime example that I'm a firm believer that you've got to create your own luck when it comes to pinball. if you're able to get deep into the game, then you'll still, the longer you're keeping the ball alive, obviously, the more that you're going to have happen for you.
Yep.
So that's a prime example. And I think that game too is funny because I know I played it. I picked it once in finals. Did you play it the round before?
I did,
Right.
and I think we played it as well in our group, and we
Yeah.
were all right around 20 million, and you took the win, and that kind of vaulted you into good position to, the rest of the round.
Yeah. I'm trying to remember what happened. I think, well, you know what? I think Bowden won that game for us. I think it was Grand Prix that I got. Yeah. Bowden won. And I think I got really lucky because I think I only beat your score
like
by
400,000.
I don't think it was even that.
Yeah, it was.
I don't think it was even that.
Small amount. It was one shot.
Oh, yeah. It goes like that sometimes.
That's pinball for sure.
Well, were you in the game? I can't remember because I know the round before the winning score for some group was like 18 million.
That's correct. Yep.
Something like that. And that's the way it goes. And it goes to show you that even though you're playing with elite players or other players are playing, obviously, that sometimes just a mediocre score is good enough. It goes like that sometimes as well.
That's what makes pinball awesome. And you're playing head to head against 3 other people in most cases. And it's just, who's executing the shots better and who has a better strategy heading into the game, and ultimately who's able to adjust their strategy throughout the game depending on circumstances of player scores and other things going on.
Yeah, and that's a great point, and especially the way that Guardians was set up with the flippers kind of sagging. I found myself, because I like to backhand the orb shot a lot, and I found
difficult.
It was really hard on that, and I got hard headed, and I tried it again, and I got lucky. I found it, but legitimately that shot was nearly at the joint.
Yeah.
Like as soon as I released, I was immediately just flipping it right back up, and I got really lucky finding that shot that early because it played difficult. I think Stone ended up getting in the finals like 600 million on it.
Yeah, it was a great score.
Yeah, and he made it look easy, and what a lot of people don't realize, that would have been probably a top 10 score all weekend long on something that was in a Herb event.
Yeah, if you watch finals of tournaments, that's not uncommon to where a few of the highest scores of that tournament happen to occur in the finals, and it's mostly because these guys are very focused in. When you're playing in a Herb format, it's very easy to lose focus just because you can always play another game. When these top players are focused in and they know they have to get a certain score, it's pretty cool and amazing to watch, and they usually can actually get to those scores, and it's awesome.
Yeah, it definitely is, and it's funny that final at Free Play. I'm trying to remember who all was in it. I think it
was Bob Matthews. It was Eric Stone. Was Luke in the finals?
No, I think he got eliminated early on. Derek Price. I know he was.
Oh yeah, Derek Price. Yeah.
Who was the other one? Who are we missing? Missing one person.
Was it
Carl?
Was it Carl? Oh, it was Carl.
Carl D'Angelo. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I'm remembering now. And yeah, it's funny you mention that too. It's just different players have all kinds of different strategies as well and different styles of gameplay. And I still remember watching Bob Matthews play Black Knight, and it was the craziest thing. He was. I
had a hard time watching, but the ball was still alive. So everyone can play different. That's kind of how Bob plays, and he's comfortable in that, and that's kind of in that type of play. So it works for him.
Yeah, and that's a great example of it. Like my heart, that was watching him play. That was the most my heart rate went up all weekend long. Yet the ball stayed in play. He did the same thing to us the previous round on Tron. He was going disc all day. And I mean, he crushed it. And then I was the idiot because I was driving the bus and I was like, you know what I'm going to do? I'm just going to pick volley against Bob Matthews. Yeah, that was smart.
It's truly amazing how good Bob is. He's older, and obviously the older you get, your hand-eye coordination goes down, and he's probably not playing as much as some of these other people and whatnot. He might not know all the rules, but he sure seems to find himself in a lot of semis and finals of major tournaments. So he's doing something right.
Yeah, he's an exceptional player. I mean, and that's something too, especially when we're talking about different types of ways to play. I find it very interesting to watch him play because it's odd. The odd part to me is that it feels like he's reversed compared to a lot of players where players that are very controlled on moderns, they may not be as controlled on EMs or solid states. And he is just complete control.
He's the opposite. Yeah, yeah, when you watch him play an EM, I mean, I can tell he played those growing up because he knows exactly what to do. And yeah, that ball's under control. It's a really fun thing to watch.
Yeah, I need to learn that. I had a lot of fun watching that free play as I got eliminated. That's the way it goes. But
it is.
Yeah, so and it's interesting too. I quite often wonder, in terms of some of these players, I need to ask around more about people's comfort levels with classics, with moderns, and the way I operate. I love playing classics. I mean, you can tell behind me I have some classics.
Yep.
But it's so weird. If I play in tournaments, I love doing it, but I know I'm not any good at them, and I can't. I'm trying to crack that egg still and figure out what my style is for that.
For sure. And the good thing with some of those games is that they are more simple. So, if you have enough time, you can watch, the best players, like Phil Birnbaum, Bob, Eric Stone when they're playing classics, and you can kind of get a sense of what they're doing and just kind of replicate that. Honestly, that's what I try to do as much as I can when I'm playing classics games.
Yeah. And that's one of the reasons why I did not play the Target classics at Indus this year. I knew better then until I got there, and then I started playing the classics, obviously there. But yeah, watching our Bob play, not Bob Matthews, but Bob Caldwell, watching him play classics was probably one of the most fun times I've had in pinball.
Yeah, no, he has fun playing pinball, and there's some times where he's under control, and a lot of times he just says, "Screw it, I'm just going for it," and that's kind of his mojo, and it's worked well for him. He's done very well at large tournaments, and yeah, he's held his own for sure.
He's another his quote too, "Ride the lightning," cracks me up every time, and he means it too. He does. That's just, I mean, and it's a unique skill to have too, and it's and that goes into as well that's what I enjoy about pinball, especially from the competitive side, that your top level tournaments, you cannot hide from classics. You have to either know how to play classics or do well on classics, whether it's at Indus or Pinburg. You can't hide from it.
No, it's if you can't play them, or if you can't play them well, you're screwed. I mean, it's as simple as that. And I think a lot of time is, a lot of people, I feel like, they'll get banks at Pinburg, and then they're like, "Oh, this bank sucks." Their attitude is so negative heading into it that, the chances of them doing well are so low. Whereas you have to remember, everyone else is playing the exact same games as you. Everyone else probably has not played those games, and if they have, it's been a very, very long time. So, in a Pinburg type of format, I mean, for me, it's just, trying to, to actually do better than the person I'm playing with. And whether if that's finding one shot that I'm comfortable with and just to keep doing that, that might be the case in order for me to get 3 points, or someone just says 2 points if someone else blew it up. There's a lot that goes into it besides just actually stepping up to the game and flipping away and playing.
Yeah, and especially a tournament like that, every point absolutely matters.
Oh, 100%. I missed out by, I think, 2 points just last year, and I didn't even play that well, but just there's so many points I just left out there. I mean, I used to own a Hobbit, and I got a 0 on that game, and just instances like that where it's like, I lost my focus. I mean, I got too comfortable, and I kind of just, I thought that, hey, this would be an automatic 2 or 3, and it wasn't the case. So you have to really stay focused and treat every ball and every game, super seriously. And that's what's hard to do, but that's what makes the format so fun.
Yeah. I mean, that it's so true too. It shows you how important not just each game is, but like you said, every single ball there, because just one ball can make or break, whether it's, tilting away bonus. Like I was playing, and I think this was during day 2 when I was doing qualifying for the awesome C division. We were doing so great, but we were playing, I want to say it was high hand or as an EM. And I just remember somebody, it might not even been high hand. It might've been another EM, but but I remember somebody was playing and they were legitimately in second place. They needed the first place in order to vault them up a little bit higher in the standings, but they ended up nudging too hard and tilt ended game.
Oh, geez.
And that was on ball 3 of a 5-ball game. So yeah, that just goes to show you just a lapse in judgment right there of knowing that you don't even need to worry about it. Just keep the ball in play on pins and needles, but at that point, because you've done the hard work. And, you know, situations like that, I can imagine how frustrating that could be and how that could affect you going to the next game.
100%. And yeah, I mean, it's very easy to have a lapse in judgment when you're playing that many balls in that many games. But kind of what I do is, you know, I step up to a game and I take a deep breath and I might wait 5 or 10 seconds before punching the ball to make sure I'm mentally there. I have an understanding of what I plan to do on the ball, and, you know, having an understanding of if I do tilt or how much can I tilt, and if I do tilt, does it end the game? And if that's the case, I might not I might not nudge the machine as much on balls 1, 2, and 3. Whereas on 4 and 5, depending on where I'm at in the game, you know, I know I can get a little bit more aggressive.
Yeah, and that makes total sense, and it's very important too, that you kind of alluded to make sure that whenever you are stepping up to a game, for me, I like knowing where the shots are that I'm capable of hitting as well. So that's really important. And Pinburg is just, it's a different beast also, that you're going to have wide open out lanes. You're not going to have rubbers on the end lanes or anything like that, or on the post. So
it's a tournament. I've said to people before, it's a tournament of adjustments. I mean, I would say for EMs and the older games, the first 2 balls are probably me just getting a feel for the machine and the shots. And then it's the same with moderns. It might take me a ball or 2 to get used to the shots and the flippers. And that's just kind of how it is. But it's the people who can adjust quickly and, you know, in between balls instead of in between games, you know, who are the ones who are ultimately going to be doing the best.
You hit the nail on the head. Where were you during Pinburg for me? I needed that advice. Somewhere around round 3 when I came back from dinner and I put up a 3, I think, just torpedoed my day.
Yeah, it can happen. It's such a tough tournament, but that's what makes it awesome. But now if you look at people like Keith, you know, it's a tough tournament, but that guy's won that thing like 4 or 5 times. So obviously, you know, it does bring out the best players.
He is so good that he's able to be in finals and lay down on the stage.
Yeah, it just shows he's comfortable. He's been there before. He's done it. Nothing phases him. But you know, I'm sure at one point things might have phased him. But he's got to the level of, you know, he's the ultimate professional, and it's just like any other sport. He's at the top of he's the top player in the world. It's simple as that.
Yeah, and it's just I'm curious to see how long he'll be able to keep that mantle, because there's so many good young players. And
these young guys. I remember. I spent a lot of time with Escher Lefkoff at the Expo, Chicago Expo last year, and just at the Power 100 and at the show. And the way he thinks is just, it's unbelievable. The way he understands multipliers and just understands, you know, adjusting in the game, and just like, you know, while the ball is moving, he just knows everything. And it's truly amazing. That kid's skills are top notch, and he understands rule sets, and his hand-eye coordination is crazy. But his brain thinks differently than anyone I've seen in pinball.
Yeah, and that's one of the things too, that obviously he's well prepared before he even steps up to a pin. Like, he knows it inside and out. You can tell. So if he's having to make in-game adjustments on the fly, he doesn't have to even think about it. It feels like it's automatic a lot of times.
And it helps that he played from a young age. I mean, you see pictures his dad posts on Facebook. You know, he's starting at age 2 and 3. So, you know, that goes a long way. I think that's kind of how I was able to really get good quickly, is that I started at, you know, age 13 or 14. So, you know, it's still a pretty young age, and I've had a lot of time to watch video and to improve my skill. So, I mean, if you think about someone like him who's been doing it since he's 2 or 3, it's crazy to think about, you know, the sky's the limit for him.
Yeah. And I think you made a great point earlier when you were talking about that you would watch top level players play,
Mm-hmm.
at least online, and then you
Yeah.
would kind of play the game along with them. And it's funny that you mentioned that because it instantly brought back memories from back when I was in baseball. When I was a young kid, I would actually watch the Cubs on TV with a bat in my living room to my mom's chagrin. And I would just watch the pitches being thrown. And if it's a strike, I'd take a hack at it. If it's a ball, I just act like I was taking a pitch. And it was almost like building up that database, even though I couldn't actually track the ball from that angle, obviously, but I was consciously thinking about and visualizing whether it was going to be a strike, where the movement was. And I took that for granted because I was just doing that because it was fun, not because I felt like I was practicing for anything bigger. But I really do think that there's something there to it. I almost feel like that's something that I'm personally underutilizing right now, that I do watch a lot of tournament pinball.
Yep.
And I find myself sometimes thinking about what I would have done, but I'm often thinking about that after the fact and not during the fact. And I think that's a great insight that you're providing.
No, for sure.
There.
And that's, I encourage everyone who's getting into competitive pinball to really watch these videos. All the pop videos that Bowen did, they're amazing. I mean, and you're watching quality content the entire video. That's some of the issue I see with, streaming these tournaments and just going back to rewatch it. There's a lot of content that's it's not great. There's just a lot of filler time between balls, whatnot. But the videos that Bowen did, the videos that Carl D'Angelo is doing right now, they're edited videos of high level play with a purpose. And I think that's, I would love to see more of that in pinball. I know that that's something that you're working on, actually bringing to the hobby, which I'm looking forward to, seeing how that progresses. But no, the video analysis of pinball is something that I think a lot of people aren't doing enough of, and it's how I've gotten so good at pinball so quickly. Is I don't play much pinball, honestly. I watch a lot of pinball, and I watch a lot of high level pinball.
Well, even then, have you told anybody when was the last time you played pinball right before Indisc, when you made a run to the finals?
No, I have not. So yeah, I made Indisc finals in January 2019. I think I was probably off 2 or 3 months before that. Didn't really touch a machine, but I would watch video. I'd watch videos of Keith and
there you go,
Bowen and whatnot, and just to keep my skills honed. But no, I didn't play much pinball during that time. And for me, that's just kind of how I roll. Honestly, I would love to play more, but I understand that I can't. I have other things in my life that are more important at times. So I try my best to put myself in positions to succeed, and just ultimately I enjoy the competitive nature and going to these tournaments and competing at the highest level.
Yeah, and that's amazing that you were able to do that after taking all that time off, because I felt like before tournaments I have to play nonstop to stay in the zone, to either go over rule sets, to figure out what I'm going to do. It's, and that's just kind of the way my brain works.
Yeah, for sure. I don't know, like I said, I wish I could play more, but there are days when I do play, and kind of my mindset there is, I'll just play for 6 straight hours. I'll go over to my friend Larry's house and he'll let me just play all of his brand new unboxed Stern games, LEs. And, I just go to town on him. He'll let me take off the glass if I want to. He'll let me play. And, that's awesome to have, but I'll just hammer it out for 6 hours, and that's all I need.
Yeah, and that's the way to do it. And I know we've talked about that a lot in the past, that the way that, I don't know how you approach a game in terms of learning a rule set or remembering a rule set. I just know that whenever I'm thinking about how to utilize the rule sets that I know, if I know there's a certain game that we have to play or a certain bank of games, I know I like finding a roadmap through that game to progress through.
Yeah, and I know something that you've been big on, and I've kind of started to really think positively along your line of thinking, is understanding all the sequences in a pinball game. And for a great example is like watching you play a game of Black Knight. You had an understanding of, once I start this multi-ball, I shoot X shot into X shot into X shot, and ultimately that's how I get my super jackpot, right?
Yeah.
And understanding those shots and just the sequences of that is something that I'm learning. And, I think that's something that you've brought up in the past that is, it's a tremendous asset to understand, is, which shots should I shoot and which order should I shoot them in order to maximize my points in the fewest number of flips.
Yeah. And I'm huge on that. And we talked about that a lot about Black Knight before Free Play Florida. And that's, yeah, you're right. I forgot about that game, but the game you're referring to, I remember that now. It was actually in the second round, or it might have been semifinals actually, game one with Bowden, Derek Price, and Bob Matthews. And I think
you blew it up.
Well, it was one of those things too that if you do understand sequencing to a lot of these games and you kind of have that mapped out in your head, as long as you're accurate, you can play under control but on the fly at the same time. Like whether it's, and for Black Knight, what I figured out is if you stay trapped up on the left side eventually, or you could even do this I like doing this just right out of the gate if there's any type of ball save, but you can still do this full sequence with two balls trapped up on the left side. So you're basically just going to go center ramp. And then I like to personally just backhand, or I'll actually go center ramp, left orbit, which is that spinner, or whatever you want to call it, to the saucer, then come back. Then we'll go back into the shield, and then it'll come back to my right flipper again. And then that's when I can make the flail stop. And then I like doing I guess not necessarily like a cradle separation. It'd be like an over under to complete that jackpot. And then you can just keep going from there. That'll light your level 2. So yeah, to me, that's so important. You almost have to understand those sequences on modern games for sure.
Oh, 100%. And that's what Escher is so good at, in my opinion. He understands sequencing, and he understands using multipliers and shot multipliers in line with those sequencing in order to yield the highest shot value.
Oh yeah, it's deadly. There's one sequence in particular on Star Wars that I've noticed a lot of people don't realize, which is, I'll go ahead and reveal it now. It's I believe it's Death Star. I'm drawing a blank all of a sudden. It's Death Star, the very first one, Rescue the Princess. And so it's a hurry up that can build up to like 25 million on a shot. So with your multipliers, obviously it can be worth a lot. If you're doing 40x out of competition, it's worth billions. But in competition, even if you're at a 3x or 4x, it's still well worth it, to where you can sequence it out to where you can match up just easy shots that it makes sense. It keeps the general flow and the ball stays relatively safe. So it's a high value mode. It's probably the most high value mode on the entire game. And I don't see a lot of people utilizing that. So if you own a Star Wars, check out Rescue the Princess. It will shock you what you can do. Every time I hear somebody that's owned a Star Wars and they say, well, I can't break 500 million, I'm like, just go Leia. Leia all day, hit your ramp, hit your Hoth shot, like indoor Hoth. And then next thing you know, you can start Death Star if you want to, even on ball 2, and you'll get spotted. I think it's like 40 or 60 million just for picking it, which a lot of people don't realize. And then on top of that, you can play Rescue the Princess as your mode number 1. So you can do stuff like that. And I was able to do that a couple of times at Pin Masters, which really helped. But then there was other times I couldn't hit a damn shot and it didn't even matter. I just
No, that's kind of how that game is. And, in head-to-head format, it can be killer, especially if the other person doesn't really know the rules. I mean, you can choose Leia, shoot your mode, start shots, and that guy's got no chance if he has no idea what he's doing. Yeah,
and it's just, gosh, it was really rough because I remember I was playing Robert Gagno in the second round. I think it was second round at Nationals this year, and I picked Star Wars, and I could tell he didn't know the rule set because he picked Luke. And he told me the reason he picked Luke, and I forgot what it was. But I mean, everybody knows that typically in competition play, you want to avoid Luke as much as possible, just because the points, the game's drainy and you can't get points very fast with him, and just the way the modes are set up. But yet so legit, I picked Leia and I hit maybe 3 shots and then had the Hoth shot just go around really fast, straight down the middle of the drain. And I was done, right? And the sequence took all of about 12 seconds, or maybe even less than that. It might have just been 10 seconds. And Robert came up and he played for legit maybe 3 minutes with Luke. I mean, he was keeping the ball alive, and he came out of it with maybe 28 million, 25. Like, there was just nothing there. But I couldn't hit the broadside of the barn. He ended up beating me that game. I had Leia and he had Luke,
Yeah.
and he beat me that game. I think I ended up only
If
scoring.
you're playing the percentages, I would say 90% of the time in that situation you would have won. So
Oh gosh, yeah. When I saw him pick Luke, I was like, okay, we're good. Like I was confident, and then after ball 3, I was like, oh shit, I didn't do this right.
That's how it goes sometimes.
I mean, it just gets rough. I I like whenever I play, I have a confidence. Like no matter who I'm playing, I think I'm going to win, just because I absolutely hate losing.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Like before tournaments, I know that there's a possibility there of me losing. And a lot of tournaments, to me, it's like the Ricky Bobby thing. If you're not first, you're last. Because obviously you have to take first to win the tournament. Well, more times than not, you're not going to take first.
Yeah.
But I like to think that I'm going to take first every single time, like no matter who I'm playing, just because I feel like if you have that type of confidence, even if your ability is nowhere near who you're playing or against whoever,
Yep.
I feel like at least having that positive mindset and positive thinking, you're not going to let stuff rattle you. You're going to tend to get into a flow state a lot easier in the games. I feel like that's really important.
Oh, for sure. For sure. And I think one thing that's been amazing in watching your transformation is, you've been playing, like I think you said in your introduction podcast, 2 or 3 years, but you're playing at you're starting to reach the level of super, super high level of pinball in such a short time. So that kind of stuff always interests me in the kind of understanding, how you got, how you got good this quickly. And I think, it kind of gets back to your athletic background, and just being competitive. But I think it's also, I feel like you're passionate about all the stuff you're doing, and that helps go a long way as well. And you try to get an understanding of the rule sets and watching video and all that stuff.
Yeah, it was just, I'll tell you exactly what it was. It was basically last year when I decided I was going to, because I enjoyed competitive pinball so much, I wanted to go play the best players I could possibly play. So I was traveling out of Oklahoma a lot. And it was 2 things that happened in a row. It was one, me being up at Pentastic, which was a Papa card format as well. Mm-hmm. And legitimately on Black Knight, a game that I'm very comfortable on, I only needed like 13 or 14 million to qualify with my card. Turn around, got 6.
Oh gosh.
Yeah, and there was even a ball save on, and there was even rubbers on. I just totally just shit the bed. I couldn't believe it, and so, and that was my last game. I had no more time to qualify, so that was a little bit discouraging. And I think I ended up being like 2 spots out of A, so that was really frustrating. And then Pinburg, which we talked about earlier, I just totally blew up there. It was so bad, and I was really confident in going into that because I played in the Pin Masters the night before, and legitimately, I don't think I even played the last 3 holes to that because we ran out of time. Mm-hmm. But I think they ended up giving me a 10 on each hole afterwards too, and I still ended up qualifying, and still ended up finishing like right in the middle of the field. So it would have been one of those things I would have put in a top 5 score. So I was really confident going into Pinburg, but knowing how bad I played and knowing that I could have done better, it just kind of drove me a little bit more to change some stuff up, mainly my stance. And we talked about that as well. Like when I came into Cleveland, I ended up taking a more upright stance that was more loose, not as tense. Yep. And I felt like it helped me a lot more stay calm while I was playing and everything. And then that's when we talked about it a little bit more after that tournament. I felt like, okay, I feel loose, I feel calm. I don't feel like my nudging ability is there though, because I'd get out of control because my feet were so close together anyways.
Yep. Yeah. I often found you're such an accurate shooter, which I think, is one of your biggest strengths, but obviously you're going to miss. And when you miss, you have to nudge. And I did find that you were off balance when you were nudging just because of how narrow your feet were.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think you've made those changes, and ultimately you're comfortable now with your stance that you're in. And it sounds weird for the listeners who are thinking we're talking about stance, but no, man, it's important to be balanced and be able to nudge the machine both from the left and the right. And ultimately not lose your balance. Because there's been times where I've seen players make amazing saves and their hand comes off the flipper and they have to, in order to save that ball, they needed their hand on the flipper, to have the ball hit it and ultimately just keep it from draining. And I've seen it numerous times where, someone's lost their balance and they missed the flip and the ball's done.
I've seen people legit fall down on the ground.
Yeah.
Like it plays so much. And as soon as I got done playing, I was thinking about what I could have done better. And it dawned on me, I was thinking about it from a baseball standpoint. I'm like, I don't field a ground ball with my feet close together. I don't get into a power position whenever I'm hitting and getting ready to launch my hands and go into rotation and all that stuff without being in an athletic position. So I decided I was going to take a semi-athletic position, a little bit wider stance and a little bit offset. So I'm actually anchored down because I got terrible knees. Like I legit got the knees of an 80-year-old. If Bob Matthews challenged me to a sprint, I would lose. That's how bad my knees are. Like I'm just terrible with that. But I got a little bit wider stance and it felt like I had more control over the ball. Like it felt like I could actually get my nudges down and all that. And it's one of those things like we talked about, the better at nudging you are and keeping the ball in play, the more opportunities you have to shoot. And then if you do happen to be accurate, the more points, the more progression you're going to make. And, the more fun you're going to have ultimately too. It's a lot more fun to keep the ball in play.
For sure. And here's another thing just to bring up. And, I'd like to, to actually get some feedback from your listeners on this is, how can we bring more players of, into pinball who have the athletic ability? Because I play with, all these top guys from a basketball standpoint, a track standpoint, a baseball standpoint growing up. There's colleges all around the country, with athletes who, once they're done, they're probably playing pickup ball. They're probably playing some golf and whatever they're playing. How can we get those type of players interested in the pinball and ultimately competing at the highest level? I think that's a question in an area that, I think there is a lot of growth there. And I'd hope to see maybe the IFPA or, all these local locations trying to make a push to identify, these type of people in order to grow the competitive scene even more.
Yeah. And I think you're exactly right. I feel like if a lot of ex-athletes got into pinball, you would see a massive shift in the way pinball is just because the hand-eye coordination and the accuracy. Like I do wish I was able to start pinball at a younger age. Like I already forgot how old I was when I started. I think I was 32, 33. I'm 36 now. So it's been relatively late in my life. Well, not late, but later than a lot of people. And I often wonder where I could have been if I would have started at 18 or 22. But I agree. Especially if you get somebody that's right out of college that doesn't go on to play professionally or
that's how I was. I played college. I ran college track. I played college basketball. Enjoyed that time, but I knew that, once I was done, I was done. Right. And, I wanted to find something else to be competitive at. And if I'm going to do something, I want to do it at the highest level. So finding something like pinball, was a godsend for me because it allows me to travel across the country. I still get that same feeling I got when I was a kid doing the same thing for sports. And now it's just pinball. And at the same time, I'm meeting amazing people. I'm learning a lot. I'm having fun and I'm competing at the highest level, which is ultimately my end goal. So, I'd love to see other people have that same opportunity and get that same drive. Cause I think it's there. It's just, we have to, as a pinball community, really do a better job of, really, having these kids learn, having these people, these young ex-athletes learn, what makes pinball special and, ultimately, how to get better.
Yeah. And I think I got the feeling that once all this COVID stuff finishes out, or obviously just tends to let us be able to get back out to tournaments, to events and all that, I'm hoping that the tournaments will continue to grow because it felt like we were on a path to growth, especially when we analyzed the IFPA numbers or the amount of people that were.
Yeah, we did that analysis. I forgot about that.
And I hope that it stays on there. I'm a little bit worried with some of the places that are closing down right now, but I'm hoping other times it'll pick up the slack. But ultimately, you're right. It's just getting anybody in the pinball would be great, but I really feel like if somehow a lot of these places could kind of advertise it as such, because you have a lot of ex-athletes that'll go play slow pitch softball
Oh,
or
for sure.
something like
Yeah.
that, like co-ed. That's a huge thing. I always wondered what if a facility would advertise to those types of people that says,
Yeah.
hey, you're not able to play this in the wintertime. Why don't you come in here
Yeah.
and, keep your group together? To me,
No, for
it's a
sure. And
no-brainer.
I've seen it. There's a lot of people who, once they play and they kind of realize that, hey, each game is different. Each game has a different, different rule sets and different objectives and challenges. That's what makes pinball so amazing to me. I mean, I can play Call of Duty and it's the same. I know it's different at some points, but it's the same type of thing over and over again. To me, pinball, I mean, each new game, it's like I'm a kid in the candy store trying to understand the rule sets and where the shot multipliers are, where the multi balls are, all that stuff, and that to me is what makes pinball so special.
Yeah, it's a guarantee that you will constantly have to learn in pinball, especially just to keep up the rule sets. I mean,
Oh,
everybody,
for
you
sure.
have you have to brush up all the time.
No, and I feel like once COVID ends here, I haven't played Turtles, I haven't played Hot Wheels yet. I mean, there's like 3 or 4 games I haven't even played, so I'm gonna be trying to
Oh
figure out
gosh.
figure out the rules to those games, and then Stern's coming out with their next game here in the next month or two, and Jersey Jack's the same way, and Chicago Gaming. I mean, these games are going to keep coming out. So from a tournament perspective, there's a lot of games to learn here.
It's going to be interesting. The first tournament back, I got the feeling there's going to be
It's going to
about
be a lot of people, I would imagine.
yeah, there's going to be a lot of people there,
Yeah.
and there's probably going to be about 5 people that know all the new pins. They know exactly how to play them. They're just annihilating them. I won't say who it is on the stream, just or on the podcast, out of respect for him. But there's one top player in particular that I talk to often that they are absolutely annihilating games, and it's set up not easy. I mean, not like Pinburg style, but it's not easy. And I'm just like, I tell them all the time, I'm never picking this game against you. And if you end up getting this game in our group, I'm just going to, like, I recognize I'm probably playing for second place, and that's not having confidence. That's just being realistic and not trying to do too much and overextend. But yeah,
No,
so
for sure.
I'm thinking about the people that are playing right now that are getting so much better. And I'm curious to see what happens, because I got a feeling that there's a lot of people out there, even people names that we don't know yet, and people
Oh
that
yeah.
might not have played A division that's going to show up, and they're probably going to kick a lot of ass. I mean, I could see somebody
No,
doing
and
it.
that's what makes this hobby special. I mean, you'll go to tournaments, and there'll be a lot of the top names that you're used to seeing, but every now and then these tournaments, there's always 1 or 2 guys that you're like, who is this guy? Alexander Kazmarkic, I think is how you say his name. It was one of those guys that kind of, he came out of the blue, and now he's one of the top 10 players in the world. He was at the Power 100 tournament, and
Yeah.
his flipper skills were some of the best I've ever seen. So, yeah, there are guys, who are coming up quickly, and I would like to, that'd be an awesome interview if you can get one of those younger guys just to kind of get their mindset and how they think about this and how they actually go about improving their game.
Yeah, I would be really curious about that. I'd be curious to see how they learn the rule sets, because I have
Yeah.
my way of learning the rule sets that I haven't talked about yet, and I'm curious to see how they do it.
For sure.
'Cause-
Everyone's different. I mean, for me, I'm more of a visual learner, so I always like to kind of play the game once or twice, and then I'll read the rule set on tilt forums, and I'll read the rule sets from all the Stern readmes that they post on the updates and stuff. But yeah, I'm very curious as well as to how people actually take in the rule sets and how they're thinking about this. If I had to guess for Escher, I think he's trying to identify where are the shot multipliers, how do the shot multipliers work, and if are there playfield multipliers, and if so, how do those work, and then ultimately, is there a way to combine those playfield multipliers and shot multipliers in order to have a huge payout?
See, I think he just sees it like Neo sees the Matrix. It's that's all it is. Just downloads into his brain, and he's good to go. I mean,
Yep.
that's amazing how that happens, and it's funny too, because man, that's just it's so strange, because I feel like it's the most obvious skill that somebody needs to develop is rule set knowledge. Yet I feel
Yep.
like it's the most underutilized skill.
No,
in
for sure.
pinball. Like,
I'm always amazed at these big tournaments, and I'll be the first to admit I don't know these rule sets amazing or like the back of my hand like I should. But no, there's a lot of people who just don't know. I mean, it's crazy, and they rely on their flipper skills, which that's kind of what I do sometimes. But I know, for example, when I was playing, I think it was at Indisc, I picked the Pirates of the Caribbean against Raymond Davidson, and I knew he wasn't familiar with the game, and that was kind of the that was my advantage on him, and
mhm.
ultimately I was able to beat him on that. But I know he wasn't comfortable on it, and it's crazy to think that the number one player in the world, he wasn't that comfortable on a game, but that's the reality of the situation sometimes.
Yeah, it just goes to show you there's just so many out there
Yep.
that I mean, it's so difficult. But especially the more moderns that comes out, I think what I find that's really difficult with playing in these tournaments is not necessarily if there's a new modern there, it's if it's one of the older moderns.
Yep,
It
for
just
sure.
randomly shows up that I haven't played in a long time, I don't have access to, that is a layered rule set. That's what
For
I
sure.
find I have the
Yeah.
most difficulty with by
Yeah,
far.
definitely. And yeah, I have that same difficulty, and I also have the same difficulty of, is a new game, what format is it in? Is it in the is it set up as a tournament setup? Is it set up as just, competition install, just normal? Knowing all those differences, I'll be the first one to say I don't know them all, but if you do, that can be a huge competitive advantage.
Yeah, and I mean that's really important. Just comp installs, and I know I played on one with Jurassic Park at the Houston Expo last
Hmm.
November, and I'm pretty sure it was on comp install. Yet I had no clue what was going
Yep.
on. And I thought I knew that game, and I was just like, "Whoops." I don't know. I'll be happy with my 35 million. Somehow it won, but I had no clue. It played a lot different than what I expected, for sure.
Speaking of that game, huge shout out to Keith and Stern on that one. That, to me, that's the best pinball machine that I've ever played. Honestly, the combination of the shots and how unique they are, as long or as well as the rule sets. It's the layering of the rule sets of that game is tremendous, and the amount of paths that a player can take is what really makes that game special, and just the amount of different ways to score a large sum of points. I mean, the balancing of that game, there's so many different strategies, and that's what keeps me as a tournament player coming back. So props to Stern and to Keith on Jurassic Park and Iron Maiden for that matter.
Yeah, they both play. I mean, obviously they both play different, but they both play similar in the sense that you can attack it from different standpoints.
For
Whereas
sure.
when I've been playing Turtles and trying to figure that out, I feel like that there's just two ways to basically play it. Because we were talking about this earlier, that layer shot with
Yeah.
the training, like it's just
It's
I
tough.
oh gosh, like we were talking about earlier, I feel like one of my strengths is accuracy. And I
Hmm.
work on it a lot. Like I have an actual practice regiment that I work on with different shots, different skills. And with the layer shot, I decided, okay, I'm going to take 100 shots at this. I want to see how tough it actually is. I went 18 for 100.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, that's an insanely low percentage. And then if you think about where that shot is set up on the play field, you're probably only shooting it from the left, or sorry, for the right flipper, right? And
yeah, well, at least from a cradle. And
from
now
a
if I have
cradle,
two balls in the left,
yeah.
now I wasn't counting that.
Okay,
All
yeah, yeah,
100 shots were
from the
from a
right.
cradle from the right.
Yeah. Which, I
But
mean, that's going to lead to horizontal motion, and horizontal motion has a higher likelihood of draining. So yeah, I mean, I'm not liking that 18% percent
no,
on that shot at all.
no,
That's probably a shot in a tournament that I would avoid unless I was in a multi-ball.
I think it's a sucker shot now. There's just no way. I've looked at it compared to the way Star Trek is, and Star Trek, especially if you look at the pictures, just
Yeah.
it can fall in there, and the way that it's angled,
Hmm.
it's going to stay in there. Whereas that angle, that what I'm talking about, it's like a little
Oh, for
45,
sure.
maybe.
Yep.
It's just not
Yeah.
there on layer. So it's
Yeah.
just I find myself trapping up the ball more times than not by accident with the upper flipper, and I can't get it to fall in. Like it's just not going to happen. But I'm going to
Yeah.
try it again. I'm crazy enough. I'm going to go for another 100. I may even go for 1,000 because I mean everything else on it's broke right now, and I'm waiting on.
Yeah, that's unfortunate. I know there's been a lot of issues out of the box for not just you, but for other Turtles LE owners. So hopefully Stern gets that figured out, and because the game looks amazing, the layout's awesome. I love the upper left flipper. That's something that I wish was on more games, and yeah, it just looks like a lot of fun. I'm super excited to hop on one.
It's a fun game. I mean, outside of the layer shot, just that one shot or the training shot, whatever we want to call it.
Mm-hmm.
I'll call it the training shot. It just, everything else, it goes well together. It really does.
Sure.
I just wish that if they would have, or if Borg would have been able to design that shot just a little bit more accessible.
Yep.
I honestly think it probably would have been a top 10 game of all time.
Yeah,
I mean,
I can see that.
I mean,
combination of theme, shot layout, the flow looks amazing. The combination of unique shots with the upper flipper, art package by Zombie Yeti was phenomenal. So yeah, that game has so much going for it.
It is so sick in person. It is.
I'm pumped to hop on one. My friend Larry, I think, got a LE. He hasn't unboxed it yet, so I might go over there once I get my house situation figured out and can move out of my parents' house.
You mean your roommate's house? Is that what you mean?
My roommate's house, exactly.
Well, Larry's in for quite the surprise when he unboxes that. So
I've let him know that I've let him know that there could be potential issues out of the box, and we'll have to rectify those.
Oh God, and it's so disappointing too, because I have to believe that Stern did their whitewood correctly. I think that's what it's called, the whitewood, and I have to think that obviously they wouldn't have gone forward if everything was working fine. So it's just, I hate that whoever actually assembled that Turtle Van diverter, basically just for whatever reason either didn't show up to work or what the hell happened. But I feel terrible for Borg and for Sullivan, because like obviously that's not their fault.
No, not at all. I wonder if COVID had any impact on that, and just kind of the factory shut down, and then how many of these same employees, how many of those people came back. I mean, I have no idea. I'm just throwing stuff out there, but that could be a reason, and maybe it's been fixed. Hopefully,
I hope so, for the premium people or for people that are just now getting their LE. I really do, because it's so weird. It's in a spot where it's below a plastic, so you wouldn't know if something weird was happening. The only reason why I knew is because balls just kept getting stuck up there. I'm like, why is this happening? And sure enough, I found my diverter completely dug into the ramp. I couldn't believe it. But there is still one thing that is off on it, and I'm not sure if they fixed this yet, because I know a new code actually dropped tonight.
Okay, wow.
And as this recording, and what happens is I know you haven't played it yet, so I'm trying to find a way to easily explain this. Basically, the right ramp is a multi-ball, right? You hit it 4 times, you'll start a multi-ball. And it's supposed to go into the diverter with the Turtle Van if you're on an LE or premium. If you're on a pro, it won't go in there. You don't have to worry about it. Well, what happens is in the middle of your multi-ball, the game will automatically start reloading that Turtle Van. So a ball will go into the shooter lane, automatically plunge up there to get relocked on there, right? Sounds cool in theory. The problem is it's happening in the middle of your multi-ball. So if you hit the right ramp while that's happening, it's going to think it's
not going to give you credit.
No, it'll get stuck in the diverter,
and
it'll take the ball away. It's like it's just gone. So I found myself, I figured that out within game 2. I was like, okay, this is weird. And so now I found myself having to actively pay attention to when that Turtle Van is reloading itself and not hit a right ramp shot. So if you're playing on the fly, like I haven't heard anybody else talk about that for whatever reason. Maybe I'm the only person that's done this, but for some reason it steals my ball. I'm not happy about it.
That's weird. It's crazy to think, because I mean, I know there's always some issues out the box, but I mean, I go back to my Sopranos machine. We bought that thing in 2006. I clean it, every couple hundred plays with just all the normal novice stuff. And I haven't had that thing works like it. I literally have had no issues. I mean, the safe doesn't always register anymore, but other than that, I've had no issues. I'm 4,000 games deep into that game, so that's just kind of, I guess it's luck of the draw.
Well, there's something to that because My Walking Dead and what else I got? Pirates.
Yep.
No issues ever. And now I didn't get those new in box either.
Yeah.
No issues at all.
It's interesting.
Yeah. Avengers, no issues until literally yesterday or 2 days ago. Because I've been the Grim Reaper for pinball machines locally. All my pins have been going down. Anything I touch, even on location, they go down.
Going down.
Yeah, I don't know what it is. I have the magic touch.
That's one of the things that can hold back pinball from growth is, the high cost to buying these machines obviously can be a challenge. And it's really frustrating when you go on location and the games don't play well. So that's another thing that can sway people from getting, or it can make people annoyed and just kind of forget about it.
Yeah, it's very true. And that's a whole other discussion.
No, for sure.
Well, we'll talk about that soon. Dom, I want to thank you so much for coming on to the podcast. Interesting discussion. Sure. Lots of great insight.
No, I appreciate you having me. And like I said earlier on the podcast, I'm fully supportive of everything that you're doing from a pinball standpoint. I think the ideas that we've talked about, in our messages together are amazing. And I look forward to seeing what you do in terms of growing pinball from a competitive standpoint and just, the hobby in general. So if my recommendation is, just to keep up the hard work. And I know I'm watching this stuff, and I think everyone else will surely follow soon as the good content continues to come out.
Well, I appreciate it. And hopefully once Pinburg happens again, I'll have you there coaching me and get my ass out of C division. Actually, I'm B restricted now, so we're fine. We got to get me out of B division. That's what it is.
There you go.
All right, Dom. I appreciate it, man. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Travis. I appreciate it too.